Today we'll be talking about how I draw this pink-haired lady. You will see in just a moment that I'll start out with essentially a bald-haired person, and then I'll be applying the base and going from there on out. You will have a voiceover, so you'll know exactly what I'm doing at what point. And then on my website there will be a download so you can use the same brushes I used when making this. Alright, so here you see me starting to add my base color. I'm doing a long bob, or a lob as some people like to call it. Essentially I'm using just a kind of a flat brush and applying the base down. So layer above the bald head first, and then a layer below to do the part that would be behind the face. So here we go. And then just drop the color in to fill it. In the next take, you're gonna see that I erased a little bit of the hair to create the part. And now I'm just cleaning up the edges, making the bottom straight so it's a very crisp bob, cleaning up the front edges, and then making the bottom straight again. Next, I'm using the smudge tool, and I'm essentially just going in and smudging the root base back. This creates the perception that it's not just a line there. It actually looks like hair follicles going back. So just go quickly through that. Takes a little bit of time. Go slow and add a lot of them, because otherwise it looks too blunt and it doesn't look real. And then I zoom in, make another straight line back to smudge that up a little bit more. And then I'm showing you that when I did that, I exposed the back part of the head. So I am essentially coloring in the bottom layer and then pulling the head back so it looks like the scalp is underneath the skin right there. All right, now I'm on the top layer. I grab the soft airbrush, and I'm getting a darker pink color to make like that perception of a smudge root, as some hairstylists would call it. And I'm essentially just coloring it in. Now remember, there's 2 layers here, so you have to be aware of that as you're doing this, and you're eventually going to have to blend them. So there we are. I'm coloring in behind the face. And I'm coloring the top again so it's all colored. Now I'm going to my smudge brush, and I'm smudging that out so it all blends in flawlessly. Zooming in. You'll see as I do this tutorial, I'm not a huge fan of having those harsh edges, so a lot of times I will smudge them out as I go through the drawing process. All right, now that I have that smudged, I am using a medium hard airbrush, and I'll essentially be creating what people refer to as like the chunks of hair. I am using a drawing reference, so as I go and add a piece, if I don't like it, I just undo it. That's what I'm doing here. It's really important to add these in varying sizes, because obviously, as you know, strands of hair don't always clump in the same size. I really encourage you to look at your drawing references as you go through these, so your hair looks more realistic and you get those nice clumps of hair that are expressed throughout. As I chose the color to use on this, I essentially just chose a darker color. Sometimes I will increase the darkness and increase the saturation. Usually if I'm going darker, I also increase the saturation at the same time. Don't be afraid to undo if you put something down that you're not quite satisfied with. This is the part that really gives your hair a nice texture and it doesn't just look flat. All right, now I add a layer above the bottom hair layer, below the face layer, and I'm doing the same thing for the bottom. I'm not super worried at this point about making it perfect because as you see right now I'm going in with a soft brush eraser and I'm actually softening those edges. This makes the hair look more realistic and then you'll be blending that out more to give an even more realistic look. All right, here I'm adding a section of highlights. I essentially took the pink I was using, decreased the saturation, and then increased the brightness, essentially a pink that's close to white. And then I just put it over my chunks of hair to show highlights. Same situation, don't stress about making this perfect because you will eventually be erasing the edges of this and then smudging that as well. So it'll look pretty great when you're done. And I duplicated it right there to make it a little bit brighter. And I'm erasing the edges to soften it up. And here I am adding some more in at the bottom. And then just keep adding layer after layer until you're satisfied with the brightness. And just don't forget to erase and create that softer edge. All right, I'm using a custom brush of mine right now to actually smudge out the bottom edge of the hair. And the reason I'm doing this is because obviously hair doesn't always come in one clump and I want it to look a little bit more broken up than it was. So I just go through and I make sure it flows with the pieces that I already put in. I do this for the top and the bottom layer. And there I just grabbed my eraser and I'm essentially using a soft brush and erasing the tips because this also, you know, I told you I liked it to not look so blunt at the edges and that's what I'm doing. It's just giving it that softer, more realistic look. All right, and now I am using a darker pink, a little bit more saturated and dark. And I'm going through and adding darkness where you would naturally see it on the roots and then different dark areas where the waves would create darkness. Going through and I'm adding it on the bottom side. Don't forget to shade around the face because you will have more darkness in that area. Just ignore my phone. All right, now I have another custom smudge brush that I created. And I'm essentially smudging out those dark areas, making them look more real. As you can see right now, they just look like someone took a soft brush and laid that in there, but hair comes in strands, and here we are creating strands and flowing naturally into that highlight portion. Now I've selected the highlight area and I'm pulling that into the darker area in some areas. So we have darks and lights that are blending naturally, but they still have that nice light pink base in the back. And here I'm just saying, do I want it to be a screen or do I want to screen it or do I just want to leave it a natural filter on that layer? I think I ended up settling on natural, but Screen it's very similar to natural, might just be a little bit brighter. I'm selecting a color and I'm starting to add small strands. This is again another custom brush that I made. Don't feel afraid to, add some, take it out, add some, take it out. I experiment as I'm going through it. There's no one who doesn't go through that process of trying to figure out how they want it to look. You can probably hear my dog behind me. She's licking her foot. All right, adding in some bright or some darker strands of hair. Don't forget to add it in the back and then the back side of the head. And here I am thinking I might add some strands that loop around that way, but I do think I eventually decide not to go that direction. It's all up to you. That's the wonderful thing about art. It's that you can essentially do things how you want to. I often see people who say do this, don't do this. I don't really believe in that. I just think you guys should do what you want, and if you want to learn from me, then learn from me. If you want to take bits and pieces of what I'm doing, then take bits and pieces of what I'm doing. Just ignore all the text messages that are coming in on my iPad as I record this. And then actually I was smudging out those strands just now that you saw there because I just want them to look like they blend naturally and come from a natural place within the hair follicle. I'm smudging, I'm making those edges look more natural. I actually do that on the front of the hair at some point in this tutorial as well. I'm adding dark into those front strands because at this point I'm kind of like, I feel like they look a little bit too bright. All right, and I added a new layer at the very top because I'm about to start adding the brightest highlight in the whole thing. So I essentially, I'll show you, just make little lines up and down of varying size, smaller and larger, and then I go across in one straight line to give that perception of a light shining on this side of the head. Next, I grab my smudge tool and I turn down the opacity and I lightly smudge it. I sometimes don't smudge it. I sometimes like that little bit more like cartoon kind of look to it, but today I just felt like smudging it was the appropriate thing to do. And then at the very end, actually adding these little details are my favorite part, just kind of blending it all together, making it look more realistic, taking that darker purplish pink at the top and blending it through the dark pink and then down into the light pink. I think that this gives it a very professional look. I won't say professional, a very finished look. It kind of brings it all together. And I just love it. I think that this is my favorite part of drawing all together, and I think you guys will like it too. All right, and I am smudging the bottom of the hair right now. All right, so that ends the tutorial. I really enjoyed making this video. I thought it was super fun. This is just a last minute image, kind of scrolling up and down to show you what the finished product actually looks like. If you want to see more of my video tutorials, obviously you can subscribe to me on YouTube. I also have a website, and I often, especially for this tutorial, will be giving away the brushes for free that I use to make this. So go over there, subscribe to my website, and you can get these brushes for free as well. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.